hope that you and your families are healthy and safe as we continue to navigate these very uncertain times. Some of you joined us last week for the first webinar, COVID Crisis, Lessons Learned from Major Philanthropists, with Naama Paley-Rose of Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. If you missed that webinar, you'll be able to view it on JCF's YouTube channel. Rockefeller Philanthropies advises some of the largest funders in the world, and we were privileged to access RPA's knowledge for the benefit of our JCF community. However, we wanted to go a step further in making philanthropic advising and research available to our fund holders at large. And to that end, we're excited to present the second webinar in our series, Tools to Help Respond to the Crisis and Our Changing World, featuring philanthropic advisors from Goodnation. We'll have time at the end to take a few questions that can be submitted by typing them in the Q&A function. Before I introduce our speakers from Goodnation, I wanted to give you a little background on the relationship. Goodnation, like JCF, is a public charity, but it is a separate entity from JCF. And in a short period of time, Goodnation has become the premier philanthropic advising platform, which uses a values-based approach to match an individual's personal interests with highly effective charities that address these issue areas and concerns. JCF selected Goodnation because they conduct a robust analysis of each organization and consult with leading foundations to select top-performing Jewish and non-Jewish charities to include in their platform. This data-driven approach, combined with the opportunity to go beyond the digital platform and actually speak with a philanthropic advisor, made Goodnation's offerings the type of service that we believe could really enhance our fund holders' experience. Of course, at the time we forged this partnership, we could not have envisioned how radically the world would change, nor predict the many questions that have arisen about effective ways to help those impacted by the crisis. The methodology employed by Goodnation to vet highly effective charities in many sectors is more relevant than ever. I'll turn it over now to Rob Hanson, founder and CEO of Goodnation, to tell you more about their services and how it can be useful in responding to the crisis. Rob?
Hi there. Thanks, Ellen. Thank you so much. And to the full team at JCF for hosting this webinar. And thank you all for joining us and taking the time to focus on your giving and to learn more about Goodnation, how we can be a resource to you. So just briefly to introduce myself, I've spent my entire career working in philanthropy in large foundations like the Robin Hood Foundation here in New York City, as well as for small organizations, grassroots organizations on the front lines of change. And this year has been an intense one. I think we're all living it, unprecedented in so many ways. And philanthropy and giving has been affected and really turned upside down much in the way the rest of our lives has. So, and all of this, of course, is happening at the moment where these really important social movements are taking hold in our country. So many donors are wondering how to be most effective, right? How do you sustain your giving to important organizations in your life while also responding to needs that are presented by the pandemic? And we're of course, about to enter the giving season, being inundated with requests, right? Thinking about where we can say yes and where we also might need to say no, and how to carry out our giving in a way that honors our commitments, and yet still responds to the moment, right? So at Goodnation, we're focused on just that. We're helping donors give meaningfully and effectively and aiming to simplify the process and to do so in partnership with the Jewish Communal Fund. So you're very smart to have your funds here, here at Jewish Communal Fund, and we're excited to talk to you about how we can help you. So the way that we see the challenge for donors is this. The needs are great at the moment, and there's also this bewildering sea of choices, right? And it's entirely understandable that donors and even an experienced philanthropist can have a difficult time figuring out which cause and exactly which organization to support. So the US Trust looked at it recently, and they found that almost half of high net worth donors had difficulty in this very area, right? In fact, it was the greatest challenge cited. One JCF donor we worked with in the spring was challenged this year, right? Because there were hundreds of food pantries and food providers in New York City alone, right? Which one is the most, it's most impactful and efficient? Which is the one that's reaching the communities that are most in need during the pandemic? Which one ultimately to choose? And we helped with that. And as we'll hear soon from one of our donors, when the pandemic struck in Israel, which organizations are serving the most vulnerable communities? And how can a family give in a way that aligns with their values? Those are the very issues we work on. So our solution is to use a combination of smart technology and very nice humans, and you're going to meet one of our advisors today, to source, vet, and recommend high-performing charities across over 35 cause areas. Now, we get to know you through a customized consultation process and then help enhance your giving wherever you are in your giving journey. So you can gain access to our digital platform where you can explore directly, select nonprofits, and you get personal assistance from a trained philanthropy advisor. So if you're just getting started, we can certainly help you. But even for experienced donors and philanthropists, this is undeniably a new day, right? Because of the immensity of the need, we all have to figure out how we're going to prioritize. Likely there'll be some organizations you want to continue to support, and that's really important. But like many of us, you're probably considering new areas, and we can be your partner in clarifying which areas, and importantly, exactly which organizations. So we'll help you build a customized philanthropic portfolio that fundamentally expresses who you are and the change you want to see, and one that complements your existing giving. Now, it could be that you want to tackle widespread hunger and food insecurity, or maybe you want to support remote learning and the learning loss that disproportionately impacts students of color. Or maybe you want to involve your family members. That's certainly an opportunity to do that and help them engage in learning from giving. And we have some excellent tools to do that. Now, what if I told you there were hundreds and hundreds of people who were paid to spend their days figuring out which organizations are actually having an impact? Not which organizations can write a fundraising appeal or tell a powerful story, but which are actually doing the hard work and getting the job done. So these hundreds of people, they aren't on Goodnation staff, but they are in foundations you see listed here. So Upstart, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, some you may recognize, some may be new to you, but they're solely focused on identifying and funding high-impact nonprofits. So in fact, professional foundations as a whole in the US spend over $1 billion on research, not grant making, research alone, and we help you tap into that knowledge. So we also take a direct look at data provided by the nonprofit through databases and publicly filed tax documents to score nonprofits across 4 main categories, and you see them here. All that to ensure that we can recommend organizations that demonstrate financial health, engage in responsible stewardship of donations, and have a proven track record of impact. Now, if we turn to the pandemic for a moment, at Goodnation, we did this survey a little earlier in the process, and what we found out remains broadly true. So I'm going to call your attention to the 2 bars at the bottom, where you can see that there is an expected decline in donations in 75% of the respondents. Similarly, that last bar, an expected decline in earned revenue. So what we're seeing now is that decline happening. That's at the same time, point your attention to the middle bar, where groups are having to add and support new services in their organizations. So if you put those 2 ideas together, it's not sustainable, right? We can't both have the decline in donations and more demanded of each and every nonprofit. Or let me put it differently, it's only sustainable if we collectively step forward between now and the end of the year. And we're excited to help you be a part of that. Now, Ellen, in her introduction, had mentioned our work together on the Jewish Philanthropy project. So remember the professionals I just mentioned who work to identify and fund high-impact organizations? So last year, we convened representatives from 10 leading Jewish foundations within the Jewish Philanthropy project, and we identified over 150 amazing nonprofits focused on Jewish causes, such as Holocaust survivors, Jewish identity, Israeli society, Jewish education, among others. So now, today, there's a very strong representation of Jewish giving options on the platform, and we're continually growing that, as well as tracking who is impacted by COVID, how are they responding. So all that information is really available to you on the platform. And then of course we combine that with our philanthropy advisory services. So we work with donors in two main ways. The one I've focused on so far is this idea of a philanthropic portfolio. And it's really a personalized advising process that helps you develop and enhance your existing philanthropic portfolio. Right? So we help you think about the causes you care about, where your priorities are, and the resources you'd like to devote. We take that information and we leverage our technology and add the guidance of a philanthropy advisor to create a curated list of giving options. And that's all for your consideration and exploration, and we help you through that process. So Emily's going to demonstrate exactly what that looks like in just a minute or two. And your Goodnation philanthropic portfolio really reflects you, right? It's your interests, it's the change you want to see, it's your values, and it does complement your existing giving. It really completes it. That's the idea, is really to try to enable you to achieve the change you want to achieve in this moment. So the other way that we work is to build funds. And so over the past year, Goodnation developed a series of funds which are a very effective way to give to a selection of high impact nonprofits addressing some of our world's most pressing current needs. So we develop funds in response to urgent needs, such as a natural disaster or other crises, and obviously COVID is probably the biggest one, certainly that I've experienced in my lifetime. We also help donors target support across important and sometimes complex issue areas like racial justice or something as complicated as democracy in this important year here in the US. When there was an acute shortage of masks for frontline healthcare workers in the early days of the crisis, we built a fund for that, and we were able to ship masks all across the country to hotspots where they were desperately needed. So in our funds, we do the hard work of figuring out where the needs are, who's meeting them, so that you can give with confidence, knowing that your dollars will be right in the front lines and really having an impact.
It's a really great segue over to Emily Ball, one of the philanthropic advisors at Goodnation, who can tell us a little bit more about what that process looks like when you go to work with them. Emily?
Happy to be here today. Thanks everyone for joining us. Looking over the participants, I see a few familiar faces, so hi to everyone. And yeah, I'd love to jump on and give you all a more of a direct sense of the Goodnation process, how we do sort of an intake process, and then give you a view of the platform itself, so the technology that underlies everything that we do. Briefly about me, I have been with Goodnation since early 2019, as has been mentioned, in a philanthropy advisor role. So I really think of my work as a bit of a synthesizing generalist. So I am powered by the technology that we have and the expertise that Rob spoke to, that we have culled from all kinds of places in the philanthropy sector, which helps to bring me the sort of knowledge and sourcing ability that I can help work one-on-one with donors and bring that knowledge to. And I really see my role, especially working with JCF donors who have been tremendous and are so passionate and generous, but also very knowledgeable in many issue areas and have a really strong sense of what matters and what their family's values are and how they really want to create change. And so we're really here to help kind of connect that with the great nonprofits out there creating impact. So we love to learn as much from donors as we hope that they can learn from our resources about what's happening in the world, what's happening in specific issue areas, and again, help connect those dots and really enhance your giving in a way that feels very personally meaningful. But again, you have a sense that your money is going to the most effective organizations and you're sort of stretching your dollars in the way that puts them to the best use. So I want to share my screen here and just for a couple minutes, hop on to Goodnation and show you a little bit more about how we work. So typically the first step is a survey. So this is a custom survey that we've built and evolved over time to really help capture the most important parts about you and your giving. this will be a sort of a link that you'll get after the webinar. You can always find us through JCF or by coming to Goodnation's website. But this is where we ask folks to start and just share a little bit more with us about you, where you're coming from, what are the areas that you're most interested in. I'll just run through it. I have it pre-populated here, so I won't spend a ton of time. But in this, I'm putting my basic information. In my case, my husband and I kind of do our giving together, so it's important that his voice is included here. And on this first page, we're asking about your values. This is really unique to our process and something that's really, really core to our philosophy of how philanthropy really happens in the world, what's the nature of giving, and how we as individuals all sort of have a unique perspective, and that should really be valued in how we make decisions. So that should really be core. And so we get sort of a sense when we go through the survey, and as working through with JCF and the Jewish Philanthropy Project, we've included a range of Jewish values and interest areas, because we know those are really important to JCF donors. They're also important to me and my family, and other things. So we sort of go through and you sort of choose what resonates with you as an important part of how you see the world. So this is, for the most part, a personal survey, so I'll use myself as an example. You know, for us, strengthening the Jewish community and ensuring, especially here where we are in New York, that it's strong and supported is very important. I personally, my background has been working in social justice and the rights of women and girls, so empowerment is really central too to how I think about how change happens. And so going through, you see, you know, other selections, and so this is totally for you to think about. We know a lot of folks have already thought through these topics and may center them already in their philanthropy. So this is really a chance for you to share with us a little bit more about yourself. The second question area is all around causes. So what are those issue areas that you're most concerned about, that are really central to how you think about the world and the change you'd like to help create? For me, you can see a few examples here. My husband's family are Holocaust survivors, and that's always been a really important and really central to how we think about giving and supporting our own community and our ancestors. And similarly, other Jewish causes. Education is big for me. I have really personal connection to help I had early in my life through education that I hope to give back to, and similarly sort of some other causes here. So again, for a lot of donors we work with, and especially through JCF, you know, you're generous folks, you've been giving, you know some organizations really well. You probably already know the issue areas that matter to you, and hopefully we can help hone that in a bit, find some priorities, and then really build out some giving options that fit into those really well. And then on the final, so we'll go through sort of the cause areas. This is really specific to your feelings around Jewish giving. You can decide how much of your portfolio or options that we help you find will be focused on Jewish giving or Jewish organizations. You could not want to give any in that direction, and that's of course fine. You could say it's important, I want it to be a mix of what I do, or it could be really important that that's your sole focus and you want to make sure you're identifying Jewish organizations and that are working within Jewish causes. And on this last page, we'll just get a little bit more specific info about you, where you do your giving, the areas that are really important to you. Are you thinking really locally? Are you thinking, you know, big picture globally? Is giving in Israel important to you, as it is for a lot of the folks that we work with? And so you'll finish this up. Once you hit submit, we won't see all the behind the scenes action right now, but that's really when I and our technology get involved. So we'll receive your survey and it automatically feeds into our platform, which will use all the information, put it through a really smart algorithm, and turn out what we call matches, but essentially a selection of organizations that are very well aligned with what you told us about yourself and what you hope to do. So I'll skip to that portion, which is logging into your portfolio. I'll mention too that we really take a flexible approach with our advising. For some folks, it's really interesting to come on and do the survey, sign on right away to your portfolio, look through organizations, explore on your own, maybe even make some funding decisions, and that's amazing. We also think it can be helpful to have a depth of a conversation and a little bit of a deeper dive into what you're interested in. I know in the case of Susan and her sister and her family, us having an initial conversation was really helpful. So it really brought to life a little bit more about them, the issues that they care about, and as she mentioned, how they really were interested in expanding out of the giving that their dad had been doing. So that is available to all JCF donors, the personal side of it, which is working with me in however I can be helpful to you, and having that initial conversation and maybe further conversations to really hone what you're looking for, talk through some ideas, ask some questions, you know, kind of put our heads together and help come up with some great ideas. But the platform too is always available for you. So you have your unique login, and then you'll come here and can explore at any time. So I'll just breeze through quickly some of the key highlights of the platform. Here at the top, of course, it's sort of tracking what I'm doing. Sadly, this is not actually my real giving amount. Wish it was. Isn't going to hit that this year. But this is my, you know, dreamed giving for this year. And here are the organizations that, based on what I told the platform I'm interested in, they put forward for me. So for me, it makes a lot of sense. So starting out, we have some great food organizations and organizations working to really combat food insecurity here in New York, and nationally, we have some Jewish identity and Jewish service organizations, which I think are really cool and awesome models. Hebrew Food Loan Society, which I know a lot of folks were thinking about this year and giving to really help make sure families and folks in need had a opportunity to have some economic security this year, and on, some local stuff here in Brooklyn. So for me, this is sort of, you know, in a sense, a picture of kind of who I am and the issues that are really matter to me right now. I'll just show you in the middle. This is Goodnation's Racial Justice Fund, mentioned earlier on the call. So all of the funds are also easily accessible on the platform, and you can always come in, read a little bit more about how we put together the fund, some of the organizations in the fund, and go through that. So once you're here, like with the fund or anything else, you can click on the page. And this is really where all the information that we've gathered and all we've talked about in terms of vetting and sourcing is all here for you. So we really like to give you all the information that we have. We hold very little back, because we know, again, you want to have that direct look yourself. You know what you're looking for in a lot of ways with the organizations that you're interested in. So we want to make sure you have that at your fingertips. So all of that information, you know, the budget, leadership, where are they serving. Here on this column, you'll see the values and the issue areas that match. So that's how, you know, our technology knew this might be something I'd be interested in. Here we see who the foundation supporters are. So as Rob mentioned, really our partnership with foundations and bringing their expertise to you is really an important part of this process. And so here we'd like to show you who those foundations are. In many cases, it might be one who you really align with in terms of their grant making philosophy. So we have a little bit more there. So if you want to dig into who actually that funder is and how do they fund and choose their organizations, and then see the other groups that they fund on the platform, that's an option. And otherwise, you really get to dig into the work of the organization. So some impacts here, what sort of the basic highlights of what they do and what they're accomplishing. For this organization, for folks that don't know, they're a really cool group. They work in schools and work around food and health education, and also really providing nutritious, healthy food for kids. That was sort of one really sensitive spot for me when COVID was hitting. You know, for those of us in New York, we know we really have a real crisis of homelessness and poverty among children. And when COVID struck and those kids were going to be at home and missing meals, that was something that was really pulling at, you know, my heartstrings. I'm sure a lot of you. And Food Corps is a great group that really stepped up in the moment. So as Rob was mentioning, we have been serving our nonprofits. We've been gathering a lot of information about how they're responding in this moment. And so you'll see now on pages on the platform, you can go through all of their work and their general work, but you can also read about their COVID-19 response. And I think that's been really, really helpful in this moment, because I think we're all looking at the organizations we already support and trying to figure out how they're responding. What do they need? Are they changing programs? Are they doing more? Are they doing less? How is this really impacting their work? And then also, who are those organizations that are stepping up in a new way, or whose work is so relevant right now and they could really use the extra support? So adding this information is really, really central to what we're trying to do now to make sure you're as informed and as best as we all can, staying up to date with where the needs are and really where you can create some change. And then briefly, I'll just go over here at the bottom. This is our score. So as we mentioned too in Rob's presentation, we do our own direct look at all organizations. This is sort of the heart of a lot of what our work is. And we have a team dedicated to doing this, and that is looking at the financial health and governance. We go quite a bit further than a lot of other sort of giving platforms in terms of how far we look. So we're looking between 4 and 5 years back. So we really have a look at what's happening over time with this organization, how they're performing, is their leadership strong, what sort of transitions or changes have they encountered. And we're watching that really closely. And so this is very dynamic. It will update, it will change, and you will always have a sense of what's going on with that organization. So I think I'll just show 2 other really quick things on the platform, then I want to jump off. I know we want to leave plenty of time for questions. Just technically, in terms of use of the platform, it's obviously very user-friendly. If I see an organization I like, I can really simply add it to my giving list. It's going to show up here. I can go in, decide how I want to make my gift. Through JCF, we have a very simple, easy process that you can choose, make your selections on the platform, and then you'll have very easy instructions for how to make that grant and for those gifts to be distributed through Goodnation. And then over time, you can start to store your giving decisions here, all the organizations you're supporting. We will have impact updates. That's a huge part of also our process is over time, following your support and making sure you're always updated on what's going on with it. So you'll receive impact updates 3 times a year, more if you'd like, and other engagement opportunities and being in touch with a nonprofit directly as well. But at minimum, you can go on pretty much any time of the year and get an update within a couple weeks or a couple months from that organization. And so hopefully over time, you're really staying engaged, you understand what they're doing, and also when it comes time to renew or think about making another gift, you really have a sense of what's been going on over the past year, and you're not sort of always thinking back to that, the first time you got involved with the organization. You have more of sort of a real-time view of what they're doing. So we are going to hop off. I'm going to hop off this and we're going to jump into Q&A. I just want to mention quickly in terms of next steps, we invite everyone to, join us in whatever way it will be helpful to you in your giving. There'll be a survey link and other materials coming to you after the webinar, so you know how to find us really easily. And please, if you have any questions or you're not ready to do a survey, but you'd like to hear more, please reach out. I love talking to folks and, sharing more information, talking about specific issues or just all of that. So please don't hesitate to reach out and we will follow up with you and give you all the information that you need.
Thank you, Emily. I think we do have one question to start out with. Someone asks, can one ask Goodnation to address specific not-for-profits that someone already contributes to determine if these organizations are well-run and to assess their impact? I guess people want to know how well am I doing now in terms of impact before they even think about how can I go further. Can either you or Rob address that?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. We are certainly happy to use our methodology and work with a donor to take a look at that full financial stability, governance, impact. So yes, yep, happy to do that when working with our donors.
Okay, that's an interesting starting point. And then another question here: how do you select these foundations that you were showing in the slide presentation? The ones where you're using some of their data about the various charitable recipients. What's your process in terms of finding these foundations, and does this get updated periodically or added to?
Yep. Let me answer the first part. All periodically updated, certainly. We're continually renewing it. And what we're really interested in is the grant making process and the degree to which they are measuring impact. And so we, at Goodnation, we come out of this kind of, I mentioned I'd worked at a foundation. So what we're very interested in is not how big is that organization, it's are there people in that organization who are have a rigorous process for grant making and understanding and tracking outcomes and impact. And so that's a very complex and complicated world. That's really what we're looking for. We want to make sure that there's a track record of success for the foundations and their grantees in creating change.
Thank you, Rob. I'm not sure we have any more time for questions, unfortunately, but our deepest thanks to our fund holders, to Rob Hanson, to Emily Ball from Goodnation for sharing their wisdom and helping JCF provide information and resources to our fund holders so you can better achieve your philanthropic goals. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. And we will be sending some follow-ups. So if you would like more information, if you want to take the survey, if you want to use Goodnation services, you'll be able to do so. And this is all covered. This is one of the services that JCF provides to you. This is part of the value add of being at JCF. There is no fee to you. And also, please stay tuned for an invitation that you'll be receiving shortly, probably after the holidays, for our final webinar in the series that talks about the Jewish communal response to the COVID crisis. And we'll have leaders joining us from UJA Federation of New York and some of the key agencies that have been responding. Thank you all.